Even taking it back a step, I think there's a real lack of understanding of what inclusion is. I don't think it's been taken past the boilerplate for a lot of organizations. And it's just the reality of where we are. So we have a lot of discussions about cosmetic diversity. We see examples of that when we are looking to fill a board with 1/3 minorities. But what does that mean? How are we doing that? What does that actually look like in a process? Within our organizations, do we have any accountability around inclusion practices? Do our management, and I'm saying we because I include myself, do the directors on my team have an understanding of what inclusion means for our organization and what that actually looks like in practice? And I would say, I'm not going to do a poll right here, but I would say a lot of us are in that position where inclusion and diversity is something that we kind of put on the bottom of our website or in our hiring practices to say that that's something that we're committed to, but are we actually committed to it? I feel like this is where we get into conversations around, some people call it tokenism, some people call it culture pimping. I might be one of those people, whatever. But when we are really having those conversations, when we need to outreach to a particular group, or we need to have a conversation with a particular type of people. And then that's when we start to think about, well, how do we engage someone on our team that can speak to X or can and work with X? And I mean, it's problematic for a lot of reasons, but it's also, it doesn't do justice for the organization because once that person leaves, that knowledge and those bonds and those connections also tend to leave as well. So I think we don't have as many good examples because we actually don't practice it because we don't understand it. You know, in this conversation, in this, the summit itself, talking about the idea of leadership, new leadership, faces of leadership. And I think one of the things that we don't necessarily address is that leadership looks very different and can look very different than what you expect it to be. And I don't necessarily just mean in the external package, but in the habits and in the norms and in the ways of interaction. And we're human, so we connect and relate to people who are like-minded and like us and operate in ways that we are comfortable with and find familiar. And that's part of our nature, but if we're really going to be digging into how do we support different types of leadership, new leadership, and make space for that, then we have to challenge ourselves to look at people and individuals who operate outside of our expectations and see how that might work in an even better way for our organizations and for us moving forward.